Hey guys, tonight we're trading in our ergonomic pillows and prenatal vitamins for something a little less comfortable. The brutal reality of being pregnant in 1950s America. Forget gender reveal parties, artisanal decaf lattes, and push presents. No. Tonight you're going to find out what happened when a bun in the oven meant 9 months of unsolicited advice, lead paint, and an absolutely heroic amount of gelatin-based food. Before we get started, do me a favor, like and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here, and if you're awake at some questionable hour, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is. I want to know which corner of the world is falling asleep to the sound of 1950s suffering. Now, dim those lights. Put on a fan for that sweet white noise and make yourself comfortable. Maybe prop your feet up. Swollen ankles are coming for us all. Eventually. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever wondered what it was like to be pregnant in a time when smoking was prescribed for nerves and your doctor's best advice was, "Don't worry about it, sweetheart"? Did women really faint at the sight of a positive rabbit test? Did husbands actually hand out cigars in hospital waiting rooms, then disappear to drink scotch with the obstetrician? How did maternity wear work before elastic waistbands and leggings? What do you do when your biggest pregnancy craving is for a food that literally doesn't exist yet, like Cool Ranch Doritos? Would you survive the 1950s pregnancy diet? Or would you perish after your 5th lime jello salad? Could you make it through labor without swearing at a nurse? Or would you find yourself gently screaming into a pillow made entirely of asbestos? Well, congratulations. You've just woken up in 1953, the golden age of atomic families and outdated medical advice. You're pregnant, you're surrounded by pastel kitchen appliances, and you're about to learn the true meaning of it builds character. Good luck. It starts with a missed period, a lot of wishful thinking, and a rabbit test, yes, an actual rabbit. Welcome to a time when pregnancy tests involved small animals, cryptic phone calls, and waiting for the doctor's secretary to call back with good news. No pea sticks, no instant results, just a whole lot of uncertainty and a rabbit that frankly did not sign up for this. Let's set the scene. It's 1953. Your body feels off. Maybe you're a little queasy, a little tired, and your favorite dress seems determined to cut off your circulation. You'd like to confirm your suspicions, but there's no CVS around the corner, no handy little digital screen to spell it out for you in all caps. Instead, you reach for your phone, attached to the wall, because it's the 50s, and dial the family doctor, who probably delivered half your neighbors and still remembers your mother's nervous spells. The conversation is, in a word, delicate. You say you're late. And the doctor, in his most paternal tone, asks you if you're sure you haven't just been worrying too much about dinner parties or Eisenhower's golf game. He tells you to come in for some tests. You're hoping for something modern, maybe a blood draw or at least a thermometer. What you get is the mysterious and infamous rabbit test. This was not a nickname. The doctor takes a sample, no, not a gentle chat about symptoms, but a vial of your urine, then ships it off to a lab where an actual rabbit is waiting. If your urine contains the right hormones, the poor rabbit's ovaries will change. The only problem? The rabbit does not survive this career as a medical device. So, congratulations. Your journey into motherhood begins with a small animal martyr and the kind of suspense that would make Hitchcock sweat. Now comes the waiting. There's no tracking app, no early detection, no 2 pink lines. You go home and pretend everything's normal while your fate, and the rabbit's, hangs in the balance. Days go by. You pretend to be interested in bridge club gossip and ration stamps, all the while glancing at the phone as if you can will it to ring. Your mother-in-law starts asking pointed questions about whether you're feeling yourself. You're feeling something, but mostly you're feeling like history will not be kind to this process. Let's talk anxiety. Modern pregnancy tests offer answers in 3 minutes. In the 1950s, you wait 3 days, sometimes a week, for a secretary to call and say, "Doctor, Hargrove has your results." He says, "Congratulations." It's like winning the world's weirdest radio contest. Except the prize is 9 months of unsolicited advice and a new person to keep alive. If the answer is negative, it's back to square one. No answers, just the gentle suggestion that you relax and get more fresh air. And maybe, just maybe, lay off the canned pineapple for a while. The suspense builds. You try to spot clues. You analyze every feeling in your body like a detective with nothing left to lose. Nausea? Probably pregnant. No nausea? Definitely pregnant. But in a different way. Sore feet? Pregnant? Not sore? Still counts. By day 4, you're interpreting the wind direction as a sign from above and negotiating with higher powers in exchange for clarity. And just when you've convinced yourself it's all in your head, the call comes. The doctor's office rings, and the secretary, who has the emotional warmth of a rotary dial, delivers the verdict. "Congratulations, dear." That's it. No confetti, no hugs, just an official declaration that your hunch, your queasy stomach, and your rabbit's noble sacrifice have all paid off. You are, in the most official, analog way possible, pregnant. No digital record, no ultrasound selfie, just you, the phone, and the sound of your future echoing through the kitchen. You hang up, your mind whirring with plans, fears, and a sudden urge to tell absolutely everyone and absolutely no one at the same time. Welcome to the 1950s big reveal. It's not private, it's not fast, but it's unforgettable, and honestly, you can't make this stuff up. You walk into your doctor's office and are greeted by a white coat, a cloud of cigarette smoke, and a man who calls you little lady. He checks your weight, tells you to gain exactly 18 pounds, and prescribes you a bottle of iron pills that taste like rusty nails. If you ask too many questions, you're diagnosed with nerves. Let's settle into this linoleum-floored waiting room, shall we? The walls are painted a soothing shade of pale green, theoretically to calm your spirit, but mostly to camouflage the fingerprints of every anxious woman who's come before you. On a plastic chair, you clutch your handbag in your lap and wait. The magazine selection consists of Ladies' Home Journal, Good Housekeeping, and a medical pamphlet titled Motherhood, A Woman's Greatest Duty, which reads less like advice and more like a motivational speech from your least favorite aunt. Eventually, the nurse appears. She's efficient, starched, and looks like she can spot an unscheduled pregnancy at 40 paces. She leads you to the exam room, which smells faintly of rubbing alcohol, tobacco, and the persistent optimism of the American medical establishment. The doctor breezes in. He's a man of science, authority, and what can only be described as 1950s dad energy. His stethoscope might as well be a judge's gavel. Your appointment begins with a weigh-in. This is less about your health and more about math. You will gain 18 pounds. Not 17, not 19, 18. Science, apparently, has spoken. He scribbles the number in your chart with a frown and asks about your eating habits. You mention craving fresh fruit, and he offers you a lecture on the virtues of red meat, Wonder Bread, and a nice tall glass of milk at every meal. If you're especially unlucky, he reminds you that a cigarette now and then won't hurt. After all, it keeps the appetite down. He says this while ash falls into his prescription pad. Physical exams are brisk and entirely devoid of small talk. Any questions about your body, your symptoms, or what to expect are answered with vague reassurance and sometimes the magical phrase, "Don't worry your pretty little head." The prevailing wisdom is that the doctor knows everything. You're mostly here to nod, smile, and try not to make a fuss. If you mention feeling anxious, overwhelmed, or the desire to know what's actually going on inside your body, he gives you a kindly pat on the shoulder and perhaps a prescription for mother's little helper. That's right, tranquilizers for the emotional strain of wondering why your feet look like bread loaves. The doctor, meanwhile, is the gatekeeper to all knowledge and, more importantly, all secrets. Medical charts are locked in a filing cabinet labeled "For Doctor's Eyes Only." If you ask to see your records, he assures you, "It's all there, little lady, just trust me." And if you're really curious, perhaps you've heard rumors about Twilight sleep, a labor method involving morphine and scopolamine. Don't expect an explanation. Just expect to be told we'll handle all that when the time comes. Let's not forget the gender dynamics at play. Your husband, if present, is greeted with a handshake, a chair, and a direct summary of your condition. You get advice about housework and a reminder to keep calm and stay cheerful. Any sign of assertiveness, such as expressing a birth plan, heaven forbid, lands you a reputation as a difficult patient. Once your iron pills have been dispensed, side effects, everything but actual iron, you're reminded to come back every 4 weeks. Unless, of course, you faint from nerves. You leave with a folder of pamphlets, a head full of unanswered questions, and a vague sense that you've just survived an elaborate game of motherhood telephone, where the message is always, "Doctor knows best." Walking home, you realize your entire prenatal experience is built on a system that's equal parts science, superstition, and a dash of medical improv. You try to remember his advice about nutrition, but the only thing that sticks is the phrase "milk at every meal." You sigh, knowing that at your next visit, you'll smile, nod, and try, again, not to ask too many questions. And as the door closes behind you, you can't help but wonder, did anyone, anywhere, ever actually gain exactly 18 pounds? Probably not. But it's the 1950s, and the doctor knows best. Or at least, he certainly thinks he does. In the 1950s, the greatest feat of secrecy wasn't hiding your affair. It was hiding your pregnancy for 3 whole months. Baggy cardigans, mysterious illnesses, and avoiding Mrs. Wilson from next door, who has the observational skills of a KGB agent. Let's set the mood. It's a world where keeping a secret is practically a community sport. There's no social media, no texts, no cryptic Instagram stories about big changes coming soon. There's just you, your expanding midsection, and a rotating collection of household excuses that make a government cover-up look like amateur hour. Why the cloak and dagger routine? Because the unwritten rules say you mustn't utter a word about the condition until the 2nd trimester, just in case. Bad luck, they whisper, or worse. Gossip. You're expected to pull off the greatest performance of your life. Each morning, you rise and slip into yet another shapeless outfit, a sweater that could double as a picnic blanket, an overcoat that would fit a lumberjack, or a house dress with enough room to shelter a small family. All in the name of subtlety, which is a bit optimistic, given the fashions of the day. Meanwhile, your usual appetite for gossip is replaced by a sudden and suspicious obsession with crackers, ginger ale, and strategic bathroom breaks. Speaking of breaks, you become a master of the polite exit. Feeling nauseous at work? Time to check on the percolator. At church socials, you mysteriously disappear just as the tuna casserole is served. When the ladies gather for bridge, you claim a touch of the flu for the 3rd week in a row, and everyone pretends not to notice. Mrs. Wilson, of course, notices everything. She times your garbage runs, counts your saltine intake, and wonders aloud if you're under the weather or just eating too many sweets. Your husband, sworn to secrecy, is suddenly the world's worst actor. He tries to act natural, which means acting very unnatural. He drops hints by accident. stumbles over sentences, and looks like he's hiding a state secret every time someone asks how you're feeling. At dinner with the in-laws, he nearly spills the beans when he asks if you want more potatoes, or are you a full? Everyone's fork freezes in mid-air. There are other dangers too. You dodge questions about your sudden aversion to coffee and why you keep napping after lunch. Your best friend corners you at the grocery store, eyeing your cart for forbidden cheeses and cigarettes. The pharmacist gives you a sideways glance when you start asking which cough syrup is absolutely, definitely, without a doubt, safe for absolutely everyone. Everywhere you go, you're haunted by the possibility of a slip. At the hair salon, you have to fake enthusiasm for the latest home perm because you can't admit you're worried about fumes. When your neighbor drops by unexpectedly, you clutch a cushion to your stomach and hope she doesn't notice that your skin has developed a mysterious new glow or sheen of flop sweat. And then there's the advice you can't escape, even before anyone knows your secret. People sense something's up and start dishing out unsolicited opinions about rest and not overexerting yourself. One day, a neighbor offers you a hand-me-down cardigan for no reason at all. You accept, grateful for both the garment and the plausible deniability. Meanwhile, you keep a running mental tally of who suspects, who knows, and who might blow your cover. You whisper the news to your closest confidant, swearing her to secrecy, which lasts precisely 36 hours before the phone tree hums with speculation. You try not to panic. It's all part of the ritual. Finally, after 12 weeks of Oscar-worthy acting and evasive maneuvers, you're allowed to announce your pregnancy like a magician revealing the final trick. You gather family in the living room, beam with relief, and watch as the congratulations and casseroles roll in. Mrs. Wilson, with a knowing nod, says, "I suspected all along, and honestly you wouldn't have had it any other way, because in the 1950s, secrets never stayed buried. But for those 3 months, you pulled off the impossible. You hid a baby bump, kept your sanity, and avoided the world's nosiest neighbor. Now, if only you could keep your Jell-O salad recipes a secret too. The minute the word gets out, you become a communal science experiment. Every neighbor, aunt, and grocery store cashier feels entitled to touch your stomach, tell you horror stories, or recommend a home remedy involving raw eggs and cod liver oil. Suddenly, you're not just you anymore, you're a walking, talking uterus on parade. The news spreads through your neighborhood faster than a polio scare, and overnight, everyone transforms into an expert on pregnancy. Mrs. Wilson from next door starts popping by, armed with a notepad of questions and a list of superstitions her grandmother swore by. She greets you with, "How are we feeling today?" as if your digestive system is now a local team sport. Let's talk about boundaries. Remember those? In the 1950s, they're mostly theoretical. As you waddle through the grocery store, the produce aisle becomes an obstacle course of well-meaning strangers reaching out to touch your belly as if it's the town's lucky bowling ball. Some pat gently. Others rub in slow, mystical circles, like they're summoning a genie. There's no asking, just hands, everywhere, all the time. Your personal space shrinks to a distant memory, like affordable housing or a world without Jell-O molds. With the unsolicited touch comes the unsolicited wisdom. You can't buy a loaf of bread without being regaled by tales of cousin Linda's 20-hour labor, or the neighbor's baby born with a full set of teeth because she ate too many pears. Advice is dispensed with a confidence not seen since the Manhattan Project, and each suggestion is more bizarre than the last. Eat raw onions to make the baby smart. Never cross your legs, or the umbilical cord will tie itself in knots. And the ever-popular, "Don't let the moon see your belly, or your baby will be left-handed." It doesn't stop at advice. There are warnings, whispered with theatrical solemnity. "Don't hang the laundry on Sunday, or your baby will have bad luck. Avoid spicy food, or the child will be too fiery. Don't watch scary movies or you'll scare the baby, who is apparently keeping a logbook of your every action. It's like living in a game of supernatural charades, and everyone in town is playing. Meanwhile, every conversation is a pretext to relay a pregnancy horror story. Your mailman's wife's cousin's neighbor had triplets and only found out at the last minute. Someone's aunt went into labor at the county fair and delivered in the back of a Chevy. Another woman swears her contractions started because she sneezed near a thunderstorm. Each story ends with, "But I'm sure you'll be just fine, dear," as if that magically erases the trauma. Let's not forget the home remedies. Everyone has a secret potion to ensure an easy birth or a beautiful baby. Some recipes sound like witchcraft. Raw eggs in milk, cod liver oil on toast, and, for some reason, mustard plasters for everything from morning sickness to bad dreams. Declining these treatments means risking disapproval and endless, sorrowful shakes of the head. The support extends into your wardrobe, your schedule, even your hobbies. Are you knitting? Be careful not to drop a stitch, or your baby will be clumsy. Baking bread. Don't let the dough rise too long, or you'll have a late delivery. Reading mystery novels? No, stick to cookbooks, or the baby will be too curious. There's a rule for everything, and not a single one of them is written down. As the weeks go on, your body feels less like your own, and more like a public bulletin board for everyone's hopes, fears, and grandmother's superstitions. The upside? You're never alone. The downside? You're never alone. Every errand, every family dinner, every church service is an invitation for commentary, usually delivered with the gentle firmness of a Midwestern tornado warning. By the end of your first week as public property, you've heard so many conflicting instructions that you're ready to give birth just to get some peace and quiet. But take heart. It's not all bad. Occasionally, a kind soul drops off a casserole, or a neighbor knits you a tiny sweater. It's chaotic. It's overwhelming. And it's deeply 1950s. But under all the unsolicited advice, there's a real sense of community, even if it comes with a side of cod liver oil and a dozen unwashed hands on your belly. You sigh, tuck another home remedy recipe into the junk drawer, and remind yourself, this too shall pass. Just not before Mrs. Wilson tells you one last story about the time her cousin had twins, and only one of them liked Jell-O. Welcome to the golden era of the husband is the head of the household, and the wife is the vessel for future citizens. All pregnancy books are written by men, and all advice boils down to, don't worry your pretty little head. Take a seat, because we're about to stroll through the playbook of 1950s pregnancy, a time when everyone agreed that men should do the thinking and women should do the swelling. The advice starts early and never lets up. Your journey begins with a collection of thick, earnest tomes, written by men in tweed suits with very serious faces and absolutely no personal experience with childbirth. Each book is full of wisdom about maternal composure, domestic cheer, and how to avoid becoming a burden to your hard-working husband, because apparently your most dangerous symptom is being difficult. Turn to any page, and you'll find a handy list of do's and don'ts for expectant mothers. Do. Keep the house spotless. Don't. Lift anything heavier than a dust rag, except when the windows need washing or dinner needs roasting. Do. Maintain a cheerful attitude at all times. Don't complain, question, or admit to feeling anything but radiant. If you're tired, you mustn't say so. Just smile and push through. If you're feeling emotional, that's just female hysteria and should be handled with a nap, a cold compress, or a quick call to your doctor, who will prescribe a tranquilizer and remind you that moodiness is unattractive, dear. Your husband, meanwhile, is congratulated on his forthcoming fatherhood with a handshake and possibly a new pipe. If he wants to go out for a drink with his friends to celebrate, that's just normal. If you want to spend an afternoon with your feet up, you're in danger of becoming lazy. should you dare to have opinions about your own birth, your own body, your own baby. You're gently laughed at and assured that modern medicine has it all under control. You're expected to trust the men, your doctor, your husband, your father-in-law, who has 4 children and therefore believes himself a qualified expert. And if you ever question the status quo, you're met with a look of patient concern and the gentle advice to relax. The implication is clear. Women who make a fuss are either unstable or, even worse, ungrateful. The expectation is that you will be graceful, grateful, and silent, unless asked for your opinion, which will promptly be ignored. Let's talk about medical appointments. Your doctor speaks to your husband about your body in the third person, as if you are a sentient houseplant. Questions about birth plans, pain relief, or what to expect during labor are batted away with a reassuring pat on the hand, and don't you worry your pretty little head. Decisions are made for you, not with you. Want your husband in the delivery room? Not a chance. That's no place for a man, and also, conveniently, no place for you to have a say. In public, the social hierarchy is on full display. You're expected to wear modest clothes, sit with good posture, and smile sweetly when older women recount their own proper pregnancies. At dinner, you listen while the men discuss politics and the women clear the dishes. Occasionally permitted to laugh at someone's joke about how emotional women get when the moon is full. You are an honored guest at your own life, welcome, but not truly invited to participate. This is also the era of the perfect family. Advertisements show beaming mothers, crisp aprons, and a complete lack of sweat or stretch marks. If you don't feel perfect, that's a personal failing, so please, just try harder. If your house is messy or you're caught wearing slippers after noon, you risk social exile. Your job is to create an ideal home, support your husband, and nurture your baby with a smile, no matter what's happening inside. By the end of each day, you've balanced more expectations than a presidential candidate, all while trying to ignore the tiny voice inside that wonders, shouldn't I have a say in all this? But in 1950s America, the answer is simple. Don't worry your pretty little head. And if you do, at least do it quietly. That's the patriarchal pregnancy playbook. Equal parts absurd, exhausting, and unmistakably real. And just think, all this before you've even changed your first diaper. Fashion designers apparently believed that pregnancy meant a woman wanted to look like a shapeless curtain. Say goodbye to waistlines, hello to tent dresses, and try not to get too attached to the idea of pants. Let's step into your 1950s closet where hope goes to wrinkle. In this brave new world of impending motherhood, you open your wardrobe to find a lineup of garments that resemble not so much clothing as something you'd use to reupholster a love seat. Your old skirts and blouses, once fitted, flattering, even a little bit daring, are banished to the back, replaced by what the catalogue cheerfully describes as maternity smocks and house frocks. These are not garments so much as negotiations with gravity and good taste. Getting dressed is less an act of self-expression and more like camouflage for your expanding midsection. Early in pregnancy, you might attempt to squeeze into your regular clothes, fighting every zipper like a contestant in a very polite wrestling match. Eventually, you surrender to the inevitable and begin the transition to maternity wear. The era of tent-shaped dresses with Peter Pan collars, bows in unlikely places, and ruffles so excessive they might be hiding a second, smaller baby. You find yourself wrapped in layers of pastel gingham and stiff synthetic fabric, designed to resist both stains and joy. There's no such thing as maternity jeans. Stretchy pants are a fantasy, an invention of a distant future where women's comfort matters. The 1950s solution is an elastic waistband so tight it threatens to launch across the room at any sudden movement, or, more often, a set of suspender straps holding up a skirt with the structural integrity of a circus tent. Some dresses come with discreet panels that expand with you, but these rarely keep pace, resulting in a silhouette best described as early refrigerator. You get creative with cardigans, buttoning only the top 1 or 2 buttons, and letting the rest billow out like a ship's sail. Housecoats become both armor and disguise, signaling to the world that you're in a delicate condition without actually admitting to it. Scarves, once decorative, are now used to obscure suspicious bulges, accessorized with a sense of mild defeat. Every catalogue is a festival of euphemisms. Modest lines, ample room for movement, easy to launder. Translated, this dress will never fit right, will itch in places you can't reach, and can double as a parachute in emergencies. Color options range from dusty rose to hospital green, with occasional forays into dull beige for special occasions. You don't just lose your waist, you lose your entire shape, traded for the mystery and drama of the potato sack silhouette. Accessories? Forget it. Shoes must be sensible, meaning ugly, and hose are replaced by knee-highs that bunch awkwardly around your calves. The one bright spot is the bow, lovingly sewn onto almost every article of clothing. A bow on the collar, a bow on the belly, a bow for no reason at all, as if the designers want you to feel like a gift someone left in the lost and found. And then there's the emotional journey, watching your body change while your clothing choices shrink, trying to feel beautiful or even visible beneath layers of shapeless polyester. You glance at the glamorous women in magazines, tiny waists, tailored suits, movie star smiles, and wonder if they too ever felt lost in a sea of gingham and ruffles. Your mother and aunts assure you this is just a phase, and no one notices what you're wearing anyway. You know they're lying. Mrs. Wilson notices everything. At home, you attempt to reclaim dignity with a favorite brooch or a string of pearls, but even the jewelry seems to hang awkwardly, weighted down by the tyranny of tent dresses. Still, you persevere, tying your bows, buttoning your cardigans, and stepping out into the world armed with good humor and a coat that could double as a sleeping bag. And so, in the grand tradition of 1950s maternity fashion, you learn to carry yourself not with style, but with a kind of quiet, ironic grace. After all, it's not forever, just 9 months of potato sacks, bows, and the certainty that you'll never look at a curtain the same way again. Your doctor suggests a healthy diet. Lots of red meat, more milk than a dairy cow, and plenty of Wonder Bread. Smoking to keep the weight down? Perfectly normal. Craving fresh produce? That's suspicious and possibly dangerous. Let's take a deep breath, preferably not while standing near an open tin of salmon aspic, and explore the wonderland of 1950s prenatal nutrition. In an era when every meal is beige, congealed, or floating in creamed something, your personal food pyramid is less balanced and more structurally unsound. If you're lucky, you'll start your day with a glass of whole milk, doctor's orders. A bowl of cereal so sugary it could strip paint, and a slice of toast from a loaf of Wonder Bread so fluffy it might actually be made of clouds and marketing. By mid-morning, you're peckish. You eye the fruit bowl and wonder if an apple is allowed or if it's considered too radical. The prevailing wisdom is that raw vegetables can be dangerous, so you reach for the safe option, canned peaches swimming in heavy syrup. There's always gelatin, a wobbly pastel dome that jiggles judgmentally with every movement. Sometimes it contains fruit, sometimes a mysterious protein, sometimes both, suspended together in an unholy alliance. There are salads, but they're not salads as you know them. They're piles of shredded iceberg, drowning in mayonnaise, and crowned with a maraschino cherry, because, as everyone knows, nothing says health like a cherry on top of mayonnaise. For lunch, the menu leans heavily on convenience foods. Canned soup is a staple, cream of something, served with crackers and another tall glass of milk. If you're lucky, there's tuna casserole, heavy on the noodles, light on actual tuna, and always topped with crumbled potato chips. Meatloaf makes a frequent appearance, accompanied by instant mashed potatoes and a medley of frozen vegetables that have been boiled within an inch of their lives. Color is suspect, nutrition negotiable. Doctor's advice is clear. Lots of protein, lots of dairy, and no dieting, unless of course you're in danger of gaining more than the sacred 18 pounds. In which case, you might be advised to skip dessert, or, more alarmingly, light up a cigarette instead. That's right. In the world of 1950s pregnancy, a lucky strike is considered a diet food. Nicotine, after all, is an appetite suppressant. Side effects may include guilt, coughing, and the disapproving ghost of future science, but hey, doctor knows best. Fresh food is treated with suspicion. The war on bacteria is in full swing. And anything that hasn't been boiled, baked, or canned is potentially teeming with germs. Your mother-in-law eyes your desire for a raw carrot with deep concern. The doctor warns against overdoing it with fruits and greens. Too much roughage might disturb the system. The only greens you're expected to eat are peas, boiled to a uniform olive color and mushed until they're no threat to digestion or joy. Every meal is also seasoned with the ever-present specter of salt. Sodium is not a public enemy yet. In fact, it's practically its own food group. Canned soups, preserved meats, and boxed dinners are celebrated for their convenience. Never mind the swollen ankles or the sudden craving for water that can't quite wash away the taste of condensed tomato soup. Cravings are a source of amusement and concern. You want a pickle and ice cream? That's adorable. You want a salad with actual lettuce? Better check with the doctor. The pregnancy diet is less about nourishing you and more about compliance with a set of rules written by people who believe the ultimate health food is a glass of Ovaltine. You're told to avoid spices. Think of the baby's digestion. So every dish is as bland as your hospital-issued maternity dress. And if you make the mistake of mentioning that you're not enjoying all this beige cuisine, you're reassured with a recipe for Jell-O salad and a reminder to drink more milk. You sigh, stir another can of cream of mystery, and dream of a future where kale isn't a four-letter word. In the end, you survive. You eat what you're told, nod politely at every suggestion, and keep your cravings secret. Because in the 1950s, the real recipe for a healthy pregnancy was simple: follow the rules, clear your plate, and never ever question the nutritional wisdom of a cigarette with lunch. Lighting up a cigarette is not only acceptable, it's practically encouraged. Your mother-in-law offers you a carton at the baby shower, and there's an ashtray in every hospital waiting room. Welcome to prenatal care, 1950s style. Let's take a slow drag, figuratively, through the haze of 1950s pregnancy culture, where the only thing thicker than the cigarette smoke is the irony. You walk into your doctor's office, and the first thing you notice isn't the sterile scent of rubbing alcohol, it's the faint aroma of tobacco, mingling with cologne and a hint of burnt coffee. There's a cigarette perched between your doctor's fingers as he explains the importance of relaxation, occasionally waving it in the air to emphasize his points. In the waiting room, expectant mothers trade advice about morning sickness and filter brands in the same breath. It's not just the doctors. Cigarettes are everywhere, woven into the very fabric of daily life. Your best friend swears by a smoke to ease nausea. It settles the stomach. The baby shower is less about cake and more about who brought the best carton. If you're lucky, you get one of those pink-packaged ladies' cigarettes, slim, with a floral motif and a whisper of menthol. There's an ashtray next to every armchair, and nobody thinks twice about the cloud hovering over the gift table. It's tradition. It's etiquette. It's science, according to every advertisement in Ladies' Home Journal. There's a logic to it, if you squint. The doctors of the day assure you that smoking helps keep anxiety at bay, curbs excessive weight gain, a cardinal sin, and is much better than succumbing to nerves. You flip through a magazine and find an ad. A smiling nurse, holding a pack of Camels, assures you more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. If it's good enough for her, it must be good enough for the baby, right? And so, you inhale, exhale, and try not to think about the future where this advice will be filed under what were they thinking. At family gatherings, relatives reminisce about the days when cigarettes were rationed during the war and hand out packs as party favors, especially for mothers-to-be. Uncle Harold assures you, between puffs, that his own mother smoked like a chimney through 7 pregnancies, and all the kids turned out just fine. He says this while looking for his glasses, which are on his head. Everywhere you go, someone lights up for comfort. Your boss at work smokes at her desk while giving you tips about surviving maternity leave. Your neighbor insists that a cigarette after lunch is the best way to avoid getting too full. Even your Lamaze instructor takes a smoke break between breathing exercises. Deep breaths, ladies, she says, stubbing out her Chesterfield, and don't forget to relax. Of course, not everyone's on board. There's always one forward-thinking soul, usually a cousin who reads medical journals, who frowns and whispers, "Maybe you should cut back?" She is swiftly drowned out by a chorus of, "Don't worry so much," and the doctor said it was fine. Peer pressure is alive and well. And no one wants to be that mother, the one who ruins the mood by refusing a cigarette. Smoking becomes a bonding ritual, a symbol of both sophistication and solidarity. You share a light with strangers in waiting rooms, trade tips on brands, and nod sagely at every reassurance that babies born to smokers sleep better. Whether it's a baby shower or a hospital visit, lighting up is part of the routine, something to do with your hands while you wait for the next round of advice, the next test result, or the next tray of Jell-O salad. But beneath the surface, there's a quiet unease. Maybe it's the way the smoke hangs in the nursery curtains, or the cough that never quite goes away. Maybe it's the uneasy feeling when you catch a headline about potential health concerns buried on page 14 of the paper, promptly dismissed by your doctor as scare tactics. So you ash your cigarette, smooth your tent dress, and tell yourself that if everyone else is doing it, if it's in all the books, the ads, and the doctor's advice, it must be fine. And so, in the world of 1950s prenatal care, smoking is less a choice and more a requirement. It's as essential as milk, as ever-present as Wonder Bread, and as unquestioned as the belief that your husband knows how to read the directions on the crib. Someday, someone will look back and wonder how anyone survived. For now, you exhale, nod politely, and light up another, because nothing says motherhood quite like a little smoke with your morning milk. Forget gummies and folic acid. You're given iron pills the size of marbles and told to eat more organ meats. Vitamins come in the form of mysterious brown tonics and an occasional tablespoon of cod liver oil, which tastes like betrayal. Welcome to the 1950s, where the only thing chewable about prenatal vitamins is your own willpower. In a world without cheerful orange-flavored gummies, your supplements come in glass bottles with faded labels that say things like vital elixir and restorative syrup. The ingredients? Mostly iron, some suspiciously chalky calcium, and a dash of vitamin B complex, which is code for this, will make your pee glow in the dark. Your doctor hands you a bottle of iron pills and, with no hint of irony, warns you about constipation and a metallic taste. The pills are massive, roughly the size and texture of a ball bearing. Swallowing them is less about nutrition and more about personal grit. You spend half the morning trying to chase one down with a glass of milk, only for it to stubbornly wedge itself somewhere between your throat and your sense of dignity. But the real fun begins with the dietary advice. The gospel of the day is eat more liver. Not just a little bit. We're talking every week, sometimes every day. If it came from inside an animal and has a texture somewhere between rubber and regret, It's apparently good for you and, more importantly, for the baby. Your mother-in-law delivers casseroles containing slices of calf's liver camouflaged in onions and gravy. Recipes for nourishing kidney pie make the rounds at the bridge club. There's even a rumor that the best babies come from mothers who ate beef heart at least once per trimester. Let's not forget the cod liver oil. Once a week, or every day, if you've been looking peaky, you're expected to down a spoonful of this oily, fish-scented elixir. The taste is unforgettable, the aftertaste eternal. The entire house can tell when you've had your daily dose. You walk around smelling faintly of haddock and poor life choices. If you gag, you're offered a slice of bread or a pickle to settle your stomach, which somehow only makes it worse. Vitamins, as we know them today, are only just beginning to creep into the mainstream. Most advice comes straight from 1920s nutrition handbooks or your grandmother's recollections of what kept the boys strong in the Depression. Pills are handed out for iron, calcium, and nerve tonic, but never folic acid. No one has heard of it. Vitamin D? Just stand outside for a minute or two. Unless it's raining, then just eat more fish. And if you find yourself in need of extra energy, there's always a tonic, a syrupy, slightly medicinal concoction that claims to cure female exhaustion and build strong blood. The main ingredient is usually sugar, followed by something herbal and vaguely threatening. Drinking it feels like both a punishment and a dare. If you express doubts, you're reminded that science is on your side. After all, look how well fed everyone was during the war. Of course, the advice never ends with the doctor. Your aunt drops by to recommend molasses dissolved in hot milk for vitality. A neighbor swears by a raw egg cracked into orange juice. The pharmacist offers a bottle of Mother's Helper multivitamins, which smell like pennies and taste like old celery. And heaven help you if you actually want to discuss nutrients, ask about what's really in these pills, or mention the word science. You're gently redirected. Just take your vitamins and eat your liver, dear. Asking for a list of side effects is considered suspicious. It's best not to rock the boat. Or the casserole dish. In the end, you take your pills, eat your suspicious meat surprise, and swallow your cod liver oil with the bravery of a woman facing her fate. You count down the weeks to the end of pregnancy. Not just for the baby, but for the day you can banish organ meats and brown tonics from your kitchen forever. Because in the 1950s, a healthy pregnancy meant iron stomach, taste buds surrender, and the enduring hope that your child will one day thank you for all the liver. Have a complication? The solution is always bed rest. Swollen ankles? Bed rest. Morning sickness? Lie down, dear. Feeling anxious? Have you tried just not worrying? Welcome to the gentle science of 1950s prenatal care, where every ailment, ache, and existential crisis is treated with the same prescription: do absolutely nothing. If something's wrong, anything at all, the consensus among medical professionals, in-laws, and neighbors alike is to put your feet up and hope for the best. The term active recovery hasn't been invented yet, and nobody seems particularly concerned with what you're actually supposed to do all day in bed. There are no podcasts, no streaming services, no endless TikTok scroll. It's just you, a pillow that's never quite the right shape, and a view of the ceiling you'll know better than your own reflection. It doesn't matter what brings you to bed: rest, dizziness, cramping, or just the vague, unspoken sense that you're not quite yourself. The answer is universal and reassuringly non-specific. If you protest, mentioning that lying down doesn't seem to cure heartburn or existential dread, you're met with a gentle smile and a cup of weak tea. For the modern listener, bed rest sounds almost luxurious. But imagine spending days, weeks, or even months propped up on lumpy pillows, with only the gentle drone of the neighbor's lawnmower and the clock's relentless ticking for company. Even your dreams start to resemble the pattern in the wallpaper. Doctors issue their advice with the confidence of men who've never personally spent 36 hours trying not to move for fear of disturbing the baby. Bed rest is a panacea, a cure for all ills and a safe haven from anything remotely complicated. There's no talk of physical therapy, gentle exercise, or even getting fresh air. In fact, a breath of wind is sometimes seen as a medical risk. The world outside your window becomes as distant as a cruise to Bermuda and twice as expensive. Family and friends join in the chorus. Your husband tries to be helpful, which mostly means bringing you lukewarm broth and rearranging your pillows with a level of care he's never shown the lawnmower. Your mother-in-law offers advice, bed rest, plus her favorite, just stop worrying. Babies can sense when you're upset, as if the child is eavesdropping from your spleen. Friends call, but every conversation is the same. Are you lying down? You really should be lying down. Even the dog looks confused by your new sedentary status, periodically checking to see if you've finally turned into a piece of furniture. Practical matters pile up. The laundry? Ignore it. Dinner? That's why casseroles exist. Housework, errands, and the social calendar all get handed off to someone else, usually with mixed results. If you dare to mention you're bored, or worse, lonely, you're gently scolded for being ungrateful. After all, some women wish they could rest all day. You start to wonder if you're not actually sick, but simply inconvenient. Mental health is not a concept anyone acknowledges. Feeling anxious? Just relax. Down in the dumps? Try thinking happy thoughts. The era's wisdom is that most complaints are the result of a weak mind or too much reading. Real women apparently cope with a winning smile, a fresh coat of lipstick, and a willingness to wait things out. There are no strategies for coping with the isolation, the restlessness, or the persistent hum of worries that always find you between naps. Even your prescribed entertainment is passive, crosswords, knitting, or staring out the window at the same two birds fighting over a crust of bread. You read the same magazine articles again and again. How to keep your husband interested. The importance of clean linens. Why worry? Spoiler alert. None of these are particularly helpful by the time you're finally allowed to leave your nest of blankets. You're stiff, out of sorts, and have a strong suspicion that nothing has been cured except everyone else's anxiety. But you get up, brush the crumbs from your robe, and pretend bed rest has worked wonders. Because in 1950s America, sometimes the greatest cure of all is the ability to keep quiet, stay put, and let everyone else believe you're perfectly at ease. Dancing, tennis, or raising your arms above your head, depending on your local busybody, any of these could endanger the baby. Get ready for 9 months of sitting, knitting, and listening to people talk about Eisenhower. In the sparkling optimism of 1950s suburbia, your pregnancy is not just a medical event, it's a social quarantine. The moment your delicate condition is public knowledge, your calendar transforms from lunch with friends and bridge night to stay home, don't move, and think quiet thoughts. The activities you used to enjoy, dancing at the VFW, bowling on Wednesday nights, or even the scandalous high kick in a local musical, are instantly declared off-limits by a chorus of mothers, aunts, and that one neighbor who knows everyone's business. Suddenly, your world shrinks to the size of your living room. Every gesture is monitored for risk. Are you reaching for a dish on the top shelf? Expect someone to shout, "Don't do that." You'll tie the umbilical cord in knots. Trying to lift a small grocery bag? Oh, honey, let your husband do that. You're instructed to avoid anything that could excite the baby. Dancing, laughing too hard, or, heaven forbid, jumping over a puddle. Your friends don't even invite you out anymore, not because they don't love you, but because they're convinced that stepping outside after sunset will somehow cause complications. Exercise, is a subject of debate. The official position is don't. While modern science will one day encourage gentle movement, in the 1950s, the consensus is that a brisk walk to the mailbox is sufficient cardio for an expectant mother. If you must exert yourself, let it be in the form of needlework, or, at most, light gardening. While seated, of course, and wearing a hat large enough to block the sun and neighborhood gossip. Your husband, meanwhile, is still allowed to go out, poker night, golf, backyard barbecues with the boys, while you practice your new hobbies. Listening to the radio, clipping coupons, and reorganizing the linen closet. Your main social events become prenatal checkups and occasional phone calls with other expectant mothers, usually about which foods are safest, which rumors to ignore, and who started knitting what for whom. At church, you sit with the other mothers to be in the unofficial quiet row, knitting and smiling benignly while the choir sings, and Mrs. Wilson, of course, keeps a running tally of how many times you've yawned. Bridge club meets at your house now, so you can participate without standing for too long. But everyone's wary of laughing too hard, lest they disturb the baby. Your main entertainment becomes leafing through maternity catalogues, rating smocks by which one most resembles a shower curtain, and making a game of spotting the happiest-looking pregnant model. Spoiler, they all look exhausted. And then there are the rules. No spicy food at potlucks. Might start something early. No carbonated beverages. The bubbles, you're told, can cause trouble. No holding small children on your lap, lest you crush the baby. You spend entire afternoons on the porch, drinking lukewarm milk, wrapped in a cardigan, and watching as life happens on the other side of the picket fence. The great irony? While you're stuck inside, everyone insists you relax and enjoy yourself. The implication is that this is the ultimate staycation. A long, restful pause, full of peace and quiet. In reality, it's 9 months of mild cabin fever, watching the world go by, and pretending to be content, knitting yet another pair of booties. But even this social stillness has a bright side. You develop a telepathic connection with other expectant mothers, a silent language of raised eyebrows, sighs, and a mutual understanding that someday you'll all be back at the dance hall, if only to prove you can still swing, twist, or maybe just walk briskly down the block. Until then, you soldier on, part inmate, part knitting machine, part Eisenhower enthusiast, and promise yourself that someday you'll raise a glass, not milk. To making it through pregnancy's longest season, the era of fun-free living. Your partner's biggest job is to tell people he's expecting and buy a new recliner for the living room. If you're lucky, he'll drive you to the hospital. If you're really lucky, he'll remember your due date. Let's take a gentle stroll through the world of 1950s fatherhood, a place where men are congratulated for doing their part, even if that part mostly involves existing in the same house. As your belly grows and your wardrobe slowly becomes more and more tent-like, your husband's contribution to the pregnancy journey hovers somewhere between ceremonial mascot and slightly confused sidekick. The news that you're expecting is, in social circles, immediately transformed into "we're expecting," which, for your husband, mostly means fielding handshakes from neighbors and collecting dubious parenting advice from older men at the hardware store. The conversation goes something like this. "Well, Jim, I see you've done your duty." Jim grins, gets offered a cigar, and is briefly celebrated as a man of action, while you're left to waddle home from the grocery store carrying both a watermelon and a sense of irony. Domestic preparation is his next great quest. He is tasked with purchasing a new recliner, perhaps to help out once the baby arrives. The recliner is carefully selected after many visits to furniture stores, each trip lasting longer than your last prenatal appointment. You'll hear about coil springs, upholstery patterns, and lumbar support. a subject that suddenly and tragically does not apply to you. And when it comes to actual parenting preparation, the 1950s dad has one main duty: stay out of the way. He is not expected to read any of the dozens of pregnancy books littering the coffee table. They're all written by men anyway. Diaper practice is non-existent. If he's feeling especially modern, he might assemble the crib backwards twice while you supervise from your resting position. In-laws drop by to offer advice. Just make sure she doesn't get too worked up, or keep her off her feet. As if you're some sort of fragile, self-stirring casserole. Hospital visits are an exercise in compartmentalization. When labor begins, your husband's primary role is to drive the car, and if possible, not get lost. Once at the hospital, he's shooed into the waiting room, where he will pace, smoke, and engage in that great masculine ritual, pretending not to be terrified. He will not, under any circumstances, be allowed in the delivery room. That's women's business, and best left to the professionals and your mother if she's in town. Phone trees are another masculine duty. Your husband is responsible for calling every relative, co-worker, and distant cousin as soon as the baby is born. He tells them, proudly, "We have a healthy baby," and accepts all the credit, as if he'd personally delivered you both from the stork's beak. At home, he takes up the position of helpful observer. He may hand you a pillow, fetch you a glass of milk, or, if he's feeling especially hands-on, stand nearby as you change a diaper, offering supportive commentary from a safe distance. In the evenings, he tests out his new recliner, reads the sports section, and occasionally glances up to say, "You doing okay, honey?" with genuine concern, if not always genuine engagement. When it comes time to select a baby name, his input is weighty, even if his suggestions are limited to names he's seen on road signs or baseball rosters. He vetoes your favorite because he once knew a guy named Carl, and he was odd. Naming rights, like most things, end up a negotiation you'll likely lose to tradition, family politics, or a sudden flash of nostalgia over his great-uncle's middle name. But through it all, there are small, quiet moments that matter. The nervous hand squeeze at the doctor's office, the late-night drive for pickles and ice cream, the sometimes awkward, sometimes sweet attempts at reassurance. He might not be changing diapers or reading up on Lamaze, but for a few fleeting moments, when he rubs your aching feet or stands in awe at the nursery he helped build, you remember that you're a team. Just don't expect him to remember your due date. That, apparently, is your job. Every party is an opportunity for relatives to hand you pink or blue blankets, play guess the baby food, and give you hand-me-downs that are already covered in mysterious stains. You smile, accept, and try to forget the advice about how to bounce a colicky baby. The baby shower, a sacred rite of the 1950s, designed to ensure no pregnant woman escapes the dual fates of unwanted attention and a lifetime supply of pastel knitwear. As soon as the invitations go out, you brace yourself for an afternoon of gender-coded chaos. Decorations explode in a binary of pink and blue. If anyone tries to suggest yellow, they're met with raised eyebrows and the question, "But is it a boy or a girl?" You try to answer honestly, but no one's listening. The party is a living monument to tradition. And tradition demands all girls wear lace and all boys wear trucks. Guests arrive bearing gifts, all thoughtfully designed to reinforce the baby's place in society. You unwrap ruffled bonnets, fire truck onesies, and blankets crocheted by Great-Aunt Mildred, who, incidentally, has never washed her hands before knitting. Someone brings you a diaper pail with a matching set of safety pins the size of railroad spikes. Another hands over a lovingly wrapped heirloom crib sheet with a pattern last seen in a 1923 Sears catalogue. You nod, thank them, and stack the gifts in a growing mountain of obligation. Games are a non-negotiable part of the experience. Your friends and relatives organize activities to keep everyone entertained and to test your patience. There's Guess the Baby Food, a competitive event where blindfolded adults are forced to taste test jars of suspicious mush, feigning delight as they choke down something that smells like old potatoes. Measure the Belly involves passing a roll of crepe paper around your waist while strangers guess how many inches you've expanded. Spoiler: the answer is always more than you wanted. You try to laugh along, but it's hard to be a good sport when your torso becomes the centerpiece. Of course, there's always a game of Guess the Due Date. Everyone throws their best guess into a hat, then spends the rest of the party trying to convince you that their prediction is backed by the wisdom of their own 15 children. If you're carrying high, it's a girl. Low? That's a boy. You look tired, maybe twins. The advice keeps coming. Put a spoon under your pillow to induce labor. Eat spicy food to hurry things along. Avoid stairs unless you want a Christmas baby. Amid the chaos, you're also handed advice about the actual work of parenting. Relatives wax poetic about their own newborns, slept like angels, before launching into tales of colic, diaper disasters, and the kind of spit-up that's best described as a baptism by laundry. The older women gather in the kitchen, plotting out feeding schedules and swaddling techniques. Someone inevitably tells you, with great solemnity, the trick is to bounce them just so, demonstrating a motion that looks suspiciously like competitive dodgeball. And then there are the hand-me-downs, bags and boxes of baby clothes, some dated, some tiny, all pre-loved and pre-stained by generations of cousins. Don't worry about that yellow spot, someone says. It'll wash out. It won't. But you smile, say thank you, and add it to your collection of maybe laundry projects. The afternoon ends with cake, laughter, and more unsolicited wisdom. As you wave goodbye, guests promise to drop by once the baby comes. You stand amid the rubble, wrapping paper, pink and blue ribbons, a box of mystery baby food jars, and realize the party is just the beginning. This, you think, is how the village raises a child, with casseroles, crepe paper, and enough advice to fill a library. As the door closes, you finally exhale, wondering if you'll ever get the scent of talcum powder and vanilla frosting out of your hair. If not, at least you'll be well prepared and very well stocked on pink and blue blankets for whatever comes next. You want to name the baby Linda, but Aunt Edna insists on Myrtle. Naming negotiations become a high-stakes Cold War, complete with veto power and the looming threat of family disapproval. Welcome to one of the most treacherous phases of 1950s pregnancy, the naming gauntlet. You would think that after 9 months of medical mysteries, unsolicited advice, and a diet that's 60% Jell-O, this would be the fun part. But naming your child isn't a creative exercise, it's a diplomatic minefield. Each name is a battleground. Every suggestion the opening volley in a multi-generational power struggle. The process begins innocently enough. You and your partner sit down with a notebook and a stack of baby name books, determined to find something classic but not too old-fashioned, modern but not too out there. You dream of names that sound fresh, easy to spell, maybe even a little glamorous. But before you can even get through the L's, the phone rings. It's Aunt Edna. She heard you're leaning toward Linda. She disapproves, deeply. In her day, Myrtle was the height of sophistication. Surely you wouldn't break with family tradition. From there, it only escalates. Your mother has a list of favorites, most of which are her childhood best friends, dearly departed cats, or saints from obscure corners of Europe. Your father wants a solid American name, something that can be yelled across a baseball diamond. Your in-laws, not to be outdone, facts in a family tree annotated with strong names that have survived the Great Depression, 2 wars, and more than 1 house fire. Each side hints, not so subtly, that if you go against tradition, your child will be cursed to a life of misfortune and fruitless piano lessons. It doesn't help that the culture of the 1950s is a pressure cooker of trends and expectations. Baby name charts arrive in your mailbox, printed in pastel blue and pink. At the top of every list, Linda, Susan, Michael, David. They're wholesome, easy to embroider on a bib, and, most importantly, unlikely to offend anyone at Thanksgiving. If you so much as suggest a name like Robin or Terry for the wrong gender, the relatives gasp as though you've announced plans to join the circus. The negotiations are endless. Every dinner becomes a strategy session. Names are debated over casseroles and jello salads. For each suggestion you make, someone in the family has a cautionary tale. You can't name her Judy. Remember cousin Judy who ran off to Reno? Not Gary. Uncle Gary's rooster attacked the postman. Even the dog gets a say, barking whenever you read out the name Rex. Your partner tries to help, but inevitably sides with the loudest or most persistent family member, usually the one who brings the most potato salad to the baby shower. At one point, you're convinced your child will leave the hospital nameless, doomed to be baby boy or baby girl until a committee can be convened. But then comes the unexpected. Someone, maybe your great-uncle, who hasn't spoken since 1947, declares that Linda is nice. It's a strong name. Suddenly, the room relaxes. The voting bloc has spoken, and consensus is reached. Or, if not consensus, at least a begrudging acceptance. You breathe a sigh of relief. You've emerged from the Cold War of naming with your dignity intact, if a little bruised by debate. Of course, the victory is short-lived. Aunt Edna still calls the baby Myrtle. Your father secretly trains the toddler to respond to Babe Ruth. And your mother embroiders every blanket with the initials L.M., just in case. But you don't mind. In the 1950s, naming your child is less about individuality and more about keeping the peace. The first test of parenthood isn't changing a diaper, it's surviving the family vote. And as you fill out the birth certificate, you look at your tiny, swaddled bundle and whisper the name you've finally won. Tradition, trends, and all of Aunt Edna's opinions aside, it's the first thing that's truly yours, at least until someone suggests a nickname. You finally get to decorate a nursery, which mostly means a lot of lead paint, possibly a stuffed animal with button eyes, and a crib that could double as a medieval torture device. Child-proofing? Not invented yet. Let's stroll into the pastel-hued heart of 1950s optimism, where nursery decorating is less safety first and more let's hope for the best. You start with the walls, which your mother-in-law insists should be blue for a boy, pink for a girl, and yellow only if you want everyone to think you're one of those modern types. You pick a cheery shade of sunshine yellow, only to discover the only paint available is loaded with enough lead to qualify as a heavy metal concert. No one bats an eye. In fact, the paint can boast its durable wipe-clean finish. Translation, the fumes could knock out a horse, but at least it won't stain. Next up, the crib. Your options are either an ornate family heirloom, fresh from the attic, a little wobbly, and built when Abraham Lincoln was still splitting rails, or a shiny new model from the local furniture store. Both have bars set exactly the right width for an adventurous baby to wedge a head through, plus sharp corners designed by someone with a grudge against small fingers. The mattress is stuffed with who knows what, and covered in vinyl that smells faintly of a gas station. Bonus points if it squeaks every time you breathe. Soft furnishings are another adventure. You receive a lovingly crocheted blanket that could double as a fishing net and a mountain of pillows that, by modern standards, are more hazard than comfort. Your mother suggests adding a ruffled crib skirt for the look, and you try not to think about how many dust mites could set up shop there by Christmas. On the windowsill, a hand-me-down stuffed bear with button eyes stares into your soul, waiting to come to life at 3 a.m. The baby mobile above the crib is a spinning array of painted wooden animals, most of which are held on with bent paper clips. Toys are a collection of well-meaning nightmares, wooden blocks with paint that chips off in your hand, rubber ducks that smell of chemicals, and stuffed animals stuffed with actual sawdust. The concept of choking hazards isn't yet common knowledge, so everything is sized just right for exploration. Your friends bring over gifts, rattles made of glass, teething rings that double as thermometers, and music boxes with springs sharp enough to tune a piano. Safety measures are, at best, accidental. Outlets are uncovered. Cords dangle from lamps. The closest thing to a baby monitor is if you leave the door open and hope the dog barks if something sounds odd. The window doesn't latch, but don't worry, the draft will build character. Decor is where the optimism really shines. You hang cheerful, hand-painted pictures of nursery rhymes, none of which feature car seat warnings. Every surface is a testament to a simpler, if not safer, time. There's a charming rocking chair, upholstered in fabric that's at least 40% asbestos, and a changing table that's just a dresser with a towel on top. The baby powder sits on the shelf, next to the bottle of liniment, both ready for use, and both likely banned in 3 decades. Yet, somehow, it all comes together. The room glows with the hope of new beginnings. The walls shine, and may actually glow in the dark, thanks to that paint. And every imperfection is covered by love, or at least by a decorative valance. You step back and admire your work. A strange blend of cheerful chaos and earnest goodwill. Your baby may have a nursery built more for optimism than for actual safety, but at least it's yours, a 1950s original, untouched by childproofing, logic, or fear. And as you shut the light, you hope your little one will be just fine, because, honestly, so did every parent before you, lead paint and all. When it's time, you're wheeled into a delivery room that looks like the set of a 1940s horror film. The doctor is still smoking, the nurse calls you honey, and your husband is in the waiting room, chain smoking and reading the newspaper. Let's talk about the labor experience in 1950s America, a moment that's been romanticized in sitcoms, sanitized in hospital brochures, and remembered by everyone's mother as just what you did. The hospital itself is a mix of bright linoleum, harsh fluorescent lights, and a vague whiff of antiseptic that never quite covers the lingering scent of coffee, cigarettes, and nerves. You're rushed past the nurse's station, where a pack of Lucky Strikes sits next to the sign-in clipboard, and into the delivery suite, which seems specifically designed to make you feel like both a medical marvel and a slightly inconvenient piece of luggage. You are quickly separated from your husband, who is unceremoniously informed that men wait outside. He's directed to the father's lounge, a windowless holding pen filled with other anxious dads-to-be, all clutching newspapers and muttering about the ball game. If he tries to ask questions, he'll be told to relax, maybe have a cup of coffee, another cigarette, and wait for someone in uniform to deliver the big news. No hand-holding, no coaching, and definitely no witnessing the miracle of birth. That, it seems, would be far too modern. Inside the delivery room, the scene is pure theatre. You are surrounded by a team of professionals, doctor, nurse, possibly a medical student or two, and absolutely zero emotional support. Everyone is efficient, brisk, and just a little bit distracted. Your name is written on a chart, but everyone calls you sweetheart or mum. There's no privacy curtain. Your feet are in metal stirrups, and the only comfort is the promise that it'll all be over soon. Pain management? The closest you'll get is a promise of twilight sleep, a controversial concoction of morphine and scopolamine that knocks you into a semi-hallucinatory haze. The theory is you'll forget the pain and maybe the whole event. The reality is you might wake up halfway through, wondering if you're at a medical conference or the world's least fun carnival. Epidurals are the stuff of science fiction. Breathing exercises are met with a pat on the shoulder. And just do your best, dear. The nurse is equal parts drill sergeant and cheerleader. She keeps time, shouts instructions, and occasionally leaves to check on another patient. She calls you honey and darling and brings you ice chips if you're lucky. If you mention being scared, she tells you, "We've seen it all before," and bustles away to fill out paperwork. The doctor, meanwhile, is a whirlwind of starched cuffs and aftershave. He breezes in just in time for the main event, glances at your chart, and positions himself as if about to receive a football pass. If he's in a good mood, he cracks a joke about big, healthy babies. If not, he just gets the job done, lighting up another cigarette in the hallway afterward to celebrate. Outside, your husband paces. Every so often, a nurse pops her head out to give a vague update. She's progressing nicely. Or, still waiting. He has no real idea what's happening. When the baby finally arrives, he's handed a cigar and told, "Congratulations, Dad." It's a girl. Or a boy. Or twins, if it's been a particularly exciting day. He might get a brief glimpse through the nursery window before being ushered away to let the professionals finish up. You, meanwhile, are stitched, swaddled, and congratulated by a passing parade of hospital staff. There's no skin-to-skin, no birth photography, no gentle soundtrack of whale songs. You are tired, bewildered, and somehow expected to look grateful in every photo. You've survived a 1950s delivery. A whirlwind of strangers, no epidurals, and a husband waiting outside with cold coffee and trembling hands. And honestly, you can't make this up. If you're lucky or unlucky, depending on your perspective, you're offered Twilight sleep, a combination of morphine and scopolamine that makes you forget the pain, and also your name, the year, and possibly how to speak English. Let's dim the lights and drift back to a moment in medical history that was as bold as it was bewildering. You're in the thick of 1950s labor, wheeled into a delivery room that feels equal parts hospital and mad scientist's laboratory. The doctor gives you a reassuring nod and offers up the latest marvel in obstetric science. A cocktail called Twilight Sleep. If the name conjures images of a gentle sunset and soothing dreams, reality is about to slap you across the face with a rubber glove. Twilight Sleep is pitched as the miracle cure for labor pain. You're told you'll simply sleep through the worst of it. No suffering, no trauma, just blissful oblivion. In practice, the method involves two powerful drugs: morphine to dull the pain, and scopolamine to erase your memory of the whole experience. It's not that you feel nothing. You just won't remember feeling anything, which, as solutions go, is both ingenious and more than a little unsettling. Here's how it plays out. The nurse injects you and wheels you off, reassuring your family you're in good hands. You begin to feel foggy, as if you're about to nap after Thanksgiving dinner and 2 antihistamines. Then the real show begins. You drift in and out, your brain floating somewhere between dreams and reality. Sometimes you thrash, sometimes you talk nonsense, sometimes you see colors that don't exist yet. Later, you may recall brief flashes, the flicker of the fluorescent lights, a nurse saying, "Push now, honey," the distant sound of a radio playing, "How much is that doggy in the window?" The labor team is trained for this. Nurses monitor you closely, sometimes restraining your arms or tying you to the bed to prevent you from leaping into parallel dimensions or simply wandering off. The goal isn't comfort, it's amnesia. Doctors chart your contractions with a stopwatch and a practiced air of detachment, occasionally stepping outside for a cigarette while your mind battles through its own personal episode of the Twilight Zone. Back in the waiting room, your husband is just as in the dark as you are, sometimes literally, thanks to the haze of cigarette smoke and anxiety. He paces, chews his nails, and waits for a nurse to pop her head in and announce, "She's doing fine." He never sees the wild-eyed dance of your labor. never hears the things you might shout while under the influence, and certainly never knows about the full technicolor adventure happening in your mind. When it's over, you wake up with a baby in your arms and absolutely no memory of how they got there. It's disorienting, magical, and deeply weird. The staff assures you everything went well, even if your first words are, "What year is it?" or "Is Eisenhower still president?" Photos are taken, congratulations offered, and you're sent home with the sense that you've just lived through the birth equivalent of a lost weekend. Advocates insist Twilight sleep is progress, scientific, modern, merciful. But even in the 1950s, there are whispers that maybe, just maybe, it's a little too much. Some mothers describe nightmares and confusion that last for days. Others recall nothing at all. A gap in their lives where the most important moment should be. Your mother-in-law shrugs and says, "Well, at least you didn't feel a thing." The nurse, collecting her charts, mutters something about the wonders of modern medicine and hustles off to prep the next patient for her trip through the psychedelic birth canal. In the end, you have a baby and a story you'll never quite be able to tell. Because in the 1950s, labor is less about empowerment and more about letting science take the wheel. If you remember anything at all, consider it a bonus. If not, welcome to the legacy of Twilight sleep, labor, but make it psychedelic. Congratulations. The baby is here, and so is your to-do list. No maternity leave. You're expected to return home, smile for visitors, and serve tuna casserole with one hand while holding a newborn with the other. If you were hoping for a peaceful recovery, the 1950s will quickly disabuse you of that notion. Your first day home, you're greeted by a house full of relatives and neighbors, all eager to meet the baby and judge your casserole. Your mother-in-law arrives early, armed with a list of helpful suggestions, and makes herself comfortable on the best chair. "You look tired, dear. I'll hold the baby while you get started on supper." This is not an offer, it's a social expectation. As for your husband, he returns to work almost immediately, having already done his part by not fainting in the hospital waiting room. There is no such thing as maternity leave, paid or otherwise. The concept hasn't made it past the brainstorming stage in the mind of a single forward-thinking HR manager. You are expected to resume all domestic duties as if you have simply returned from a pleasant afternoon tea. Your days become a blur of diapers, dishes, dusting, and making sure the casserole is never, ever overcooked. Your only break is when the baby naps, and that's when you race to the kitchen to start the next round of chores or attempt to write thank you notes for the parade of pastel blankets and questionable hand-me-downs. The advice, of course, never ends. Don't pick the baby up too much or you'll spoil him. Make sure he's swaddled tightly. Babies love to be snug. Don't forget to look after your husband. He needs his rest too. Each suggestion is delivered with the certainty of divine truth and the subtlety of a marching band. Even the grocery store cashier has tips for getting a fussy baby to sleep. And the mailman inquires whether you've tried feeding the baby just a little cereal yet. Your own instincts, foggy from lack of sleep and a diet of creamed soup, are at the bottom of everyone's list. Physical recovery is treated with the same breezy disregard as your emotional health. Sore, exhausted, possibly stitched in places you'd rather not mention, you're advised to walk it off and stay cheerful. Any sign of sadness or struggle is dismissed as the blues, something that will pass if you keep yourself busy enough. The word postpartum depression does not appear in any book, pamphlet, or casual conversation. If you're struggling, you simply aren't trying hard enough. As for baby care, you're expected to be an expert from day one. Feeding schedules, cloth diaper folding, and the art of rocking a bassinet with your foot while scrubbing potatoes with one hand and answering the phone with the other. If you're lucky, a neighbor might bring a casserole, usually tuna, always topped with potato chips, leaving you with both dinner and a pile of dishes to wash. The one thing no one brings is a sense of understanding for how completely overwhelming it all feels. Nights are their own special kind of marathon. The baby wakes up at all hours, but your sleep schedule is expected to bounce back immediately. If you look a little weary, you're told, you mustn't let yourself go. A little lipstick, a dab of cold cream, and you're back to normal, at least, according to everyone else. Your own body feels like it's been through a natural disaster and left without instructions. Still, there are moments, brief and shining, when you manage to sneak a nap, catch a smile from your baby, or feel the warm satisfaction of a casserole that hasn't burned. You realize you're surviving, even if you're not always thriving. The world expects you to be Superwoman, but sometimes it's enough just to be awake, upright, and, on the best days, still in your slippers at 3 in the afternoon. And as you shuffle to the door to greet yet another visitor, you smile, adjust the baby on your hip, and tell yourself, if you can survive the 1950s postpartum period, you can survive anything. Even another round of tuna casserole. The 1950s are the golden age of formula, marketed as the modern way to feed your child. If you breastfeed, people look at you like you've joined a fringe cult. Either way, someone is judging you. Welcome to the infant feeding dilemma of the atomic age, a battle fought not just in the privacy of your kitchen, but in every magazine ad, doctor's waiting room, and grocery store checkout line. Science, it turns out, has a lot to say about your baby's next meal. And so does your mother-in-law, your best friend, and the entire ladies' auxiliary club. Everyone, it seems, has chosen a side. Let's start with the bottle. In the world of 1950s motherhood, bottle feeding is the glamorous, space-age solution. Formula companies outdo themselves with ads featuring gleaming glass bottles, happy babies, and mothers who look like they've never known the misery of spilled milk or a 3 a.m. feeding. Modern science takes the guesswork out of mothering. The ads proclaim, usually over a photo of a pediatrician in a white coat holding a can of powder with an expression of deep authority. If you choose formula, you're following the trend. The hospital staff sends you home with samples. Doctors assure you it's the healthiest, most convenient option, and your neighbor across the street nods approvingly as you shake up a bottle for your newborn. The formula itself comes in cans so heavy they could double as doorstops. Mixing it is a ritual, measured scoops, boiled water, and a silent prayer you don't run out before your next shopping trip. The bottle sterilizer takes up half your counter, bubbling away like a mad scientist's cauldron. But here's the thing, if you dare to breastfeed, the response is mixed. There's always one older relative who remembers the good old days, but mostly you're met with skepticism. Why would you, when formula is so clean, so easy, so modern, some ask, as if you've just rejected indoor plumbing? If you mention nursing in public, prepare for sideways glances, pursed lips, and the urgent suggestion that you go to the ladies' lounge. The only support group for breastfeeding in 1953 is your grandmother and maybe a French novel. And then there's the advice. Don't spoil the baby by holding him too much. Don't nurse after midnight, or you'll have a colicky child. If the baby cries, it's probably your milk. For every method, there's a cautionary tale. My friend's sister's cousin tried formula, and her baby slept through the night. Aunt Edna's milk never came in, and look how healthy her children are. Whatever you choose, you're sure to be met with a Greek chorus of well-meaning women sharing their personal feeding philosophies as if they're gospel. Science itself isn't much help. Pediatricians line up on both sides, some championing the nutritional perfection of breast milk, others dazzled by the marvels of powdered formula. Medical journals are full of graphs, charts, and statistics. But what they don't cover is the experience of sitting up at 2 in the morning, soothing a hungry baby while trying to remember if you boiled the last batch of bottles or whether you've eaten since sunrise. Feeding your baby, in the end, is less about nutrition and more about negotiation between your own instincts, the latest science, and a world convinced it knows best. If you bottle feed, someone will hint you're missing out on real bonding. If you nurse, someone else will imply you're clinging to the past. Meanwhile, your baby's only concern is whether you've figured out how to hold the bottle so it doesn't drip down their chin. And yet, somehow, the babies thrive. Formula or breast, bottle or burp cloth. They grow, smile, and, eventually, sleep through the night. At least that's the rumor. You, meanwhile, become an expert at tuning out the static, trusting your own judgment, and knowing that the real science of feeding a child is a blend of patience, trial and error, and whatever gets you through another day in 1950s America. Because when it comes to feeding your baby in the golden age of progress, the only thing everyone agrees on is that you're doing it wrong, no matter what you choose. Diapers are cloth, safety pins are sharp, and baby powder is asbestos in a cute container. For a rash, try mercury ointment. For colic, a drop of whiskey. The baby will be fine, probably. Welcome to the wild world of 1950s baby care. A place where the motto is, if it worked for grandma, it'll work for you. Every task, from diapering to soothing, is a lesson in improvisation, optimism, and a dash of chemical recklessness. Let's start with diapers. Disposable diapers are a twinkle in some engineer's eye. So you're living the cloth life, flat squares of cotton that require folding skills, patience, and the reflexes of a magician. Every change is an adventure in origami, usually performed while the baby performs his own acrobatics. You secure everything with safety pins so sharp they could double as crime scene evidence, all while praying you won't stab a finger or, heaven forbid, the baby's squirming thigh. Your laundry basket is never empty. Soaking, boiling, and line drying become part of your daily routine, your own Sisyphean laundry myth. And then there's baby powder, a must-have in every changing station, mostly because the scent says clean baby, even when your kitchen sink says laundry apocalypse. Unfortunately, the main ingredient is asbestos, marketed as soft, soothing, and probably magical, as long as no one breathes too deeply. For rashes, you're handed a tin of ointment that boasts its mercury content right on the label. The instructions are, rub it on. Don't worry, we all did it, and look how well we turned out. You try not to notice that Aunt Mabel's left eye twitches when she says this. Bath time is equal parts relaxation and high-stakes science. The water is tested with an elbow or, if you're feeling modern, a floating plastic thermometer which may or may not be full of lead. You wash your baby with a bar of soap that promises to be gentle but smells like industrial cleanser. There are no bath seats, no soft sponges, just your slippery baby and the hard truth that the tub is a dangerous place if you look away for even a second. If your baby swallows water, the advice is simple. He'll spit it out. Babies are resilient. For colic or sleepless nights, your arsenal is straight out of a speakeasy. A drop of whiskey in the bottle is an open secret, recommended by grandmothers, neighbors, and, occasionally, medical professionals who really should know better. If you balk, you're reassured. Just a drop, dear. It never hurt anyone. Teething? Try a frozen rag, a rubber ring. Or, if you're feeling brave, rub the gums with brandy. If that doesn't work, there's always cod liver oil, a viscous, fishy horror that's supposed to build strong bones and ward off illness. You administer it with a sense of duty and averted eyes, ignoring your baby's look of betrayal. There's also the matter of sleep. The consensus is that babies should sleep alone in their cribs, no co-sleeping, no cuddling, and certainly no midnight snuggles. The reasoning? You'll spoil the baby, and besides, you have laundry to do. Mobiles are made of painted wood and string. and the only white noise is the gentle thump of Dad's new recliner as he dozes through the nightly feeding. If the baby cries too long, you're advised to let him cry it out. If you pick him up too quickly, you'll ruin him for life. Of course, all these instructions are delivered with utter certainty and a charming disregard for any scientific study. If you ask for clarification, you'll get the standard refrain: babies have survived worse. And it's true. They do survive, grow, and, somehow, thrive under the tender care of cloth diapers, questionable ointments, and the occasional medicinal cocktail. So you soldier on, navigating baby care with one hand, a cloth diaper in the other, and a sense of humor hanging by a thread. The baby, meanwhile, coos, squirms, and carries on, blissfully unaware that he's the star of the greatest improvisational show the 1950s ever staged. And honestly, he'll probably be just fine. Feeling anxious? Read an advice column. Still anxious? Here's a prescription for Mother's Little Helper, the original chill pill. Just don't ask what's actually in it. It's the 1950s, the golden age of the printed word and the pharmaceutical solution. Your morning starts with a cup of percolator coffee and the latest copy of Ladies' Home Journal or Good Housekeeping, not for the recipes or the advertisements, though you do consider the new washing machine with triple rinse action, but for the advice columns. These pages are the crowd-sourced therapy of the era. Ask Anne, Dear Abby, and Mrs. Fix-It promise solutions for everything from burnt pot roasts to marital disappointments. Feeling overwhelmed by motherhood, marriage, and the mysterious stain on the living room rug? Just write in and wait 3 to 6 weeks for a reply, by which time you'll have solved the problem, moved on, or forgotten what you wrote about in the first place. The advice is as soothing as it is vague. Take a brisk walk. Count your blessings. Spruce up with a fresh lipstick and a smile. There's a gentle insistence that your problems aren't really problems, just little bumps in the road of domestic bliss, easily smoothed by a new casserole recipe or a firmer mattress. If you mention anything serious, like worry, sadness, or the vague sense that the walls are closing in, you're reminded that every mother feels this way sometimes. For more pressing concerns, there's a discreet little ad in the back pages. Ask your doctor about Mother's Little Helper. And so you do. The doctor listens, nods, and prescribes a small bottle of pills, mild tranquilizers or barbiturates, marketed specifically to frazzled housewives. For your nerves, he says, writing the prescription with the confidence of a man who's never had to juggle a newborn, a roast in the oven, and a toddler with a crayon. No one asks about side effects. No one explains exactly what's inside. The instructions are simple. Take one whenever you're feeling anxious. You'll be right as rain. You take the pill and feel the edges of your worry blur. Suddenly, the endless parade of chores, advice, and unsolicited judgment softens to a background hum. You can face the neighbor's opinions, your husband's forgotten chores, and even your own self-doubt with a little more ease. The world is still overwhelming, but at least you're less likely to burst into tears over a burned meatloaf. Meanwhile, the advice columns continue their quiet campaign for cheerful endurance. Every problem has a tidy solution. Write a gratitude list. Organize a sock drawer. Try not to let things bother you so much. Depression? Just keep busy. Anxiety? Maybe it's time for a hobby. The possibility that life could be genuinely hard is never mentioned. The prevailing wisdom is that most things can be fixed with effort, attitude, and a willingness to look the other way. Of course, beneath the surface, the pills are doing the heavy lifting. Mother's Little Helper becomes a quiet companion for millions of women, smoothing rough edges, dulling sharp emotions, and helping you get through the day when advice columns aren't enough. There are whispers, of course, about dependency and side effects. But those are future worries, tucked behind tomorrow's casserole recipe and the latest advice for keeping your husband happy. For now, you smile, put on a record, and remind yourself that help is just a pillbox away. And as you tuck away the magazine and straighten your apron, you wonder if anyone else feels this tired, or this alone, or this quietly rebellious. Maybe you'll write to Anne or Abby tomorrow, or maybe you'll just take another little helper and keep going, knowing that in the 1950s, there's a solution for every problem as long as you don't ask too many questions. It's not enough to raise a child. You also have to vacuum in high heels, host dinner parties, and look fresh as a daisy for when your husband gets home. Personal happiness? That's suspicious. See a doctor. Welcome to the daily high-wire act of 1950s motherhood, where the only thing more exhausting than raising a baby is pretending you're not exhausted at all. Your life has become a performance, a technicolor spectacle of pressed aprons, gleaming linoleum, and the faint whiff of lemon pledge. Before the sun rises, you're already putting on your face, cold cream, powder, lipstick, and a hopeful dab of perfume. It doesn't matter if you were up half the night with a teething baby. The neighborhood expects a vision of effortless cheer every time you step out to collect the milk. Every task, no matter how mundane, is an opportunity for judgment, or, in the language of the era, constructive feedback. The laundry must be spotless and hung in straight lines. The living room must look like it was arranged by the same people who stage department store windows. The baby must always be clean, smiling, and, if at all possible, dressed in ruffles or a tiny bow tie, regardless of whether he's eating strained peas or plotting a diaper rebellion. And you? You must be put together. No sweatpants, no chipped nail polish, no hint of a breakdown. If you ever feel the urge to collapse in a heap or scream into a dish towel, keep it between yourself and the floral wallpaper. Even the magazines that promise to help busy mothers run articles with titles like "How I Lost My Baby Weight in a Week" and "Why My Husband Says I'm Still His Dream Girl." These are not articles, they are veiled threats. Your husband, meanwhile, returns from work expecting a haven of peace, complete with meatloaf, a smiling wife, and children who greet him like he's home from war. If you so much as sigh in his direction, you risk being labeled overwrought. He offers to take the baby for a minute, but only if the game isn't on. And when he says, "You look tired, honey," it's not an offer to help, it's a subtle reminder that you're slipping. The solution, of course, is more effort on your part. Neighborhood competition is fierce. Mrs. Wilson down the street is rumored to iron her curtains every Tuesday, while Mrs. Carlson hosts weekly dinner parties with real linen napkins. Every invitation is a gauntlet thrown. Can you juggle a teething baby, whip up a 4-course meal, and still have time to arrange the flowers? You smile through gritted teeth, accept every invitation, and practice your "I'm just so blessed" speech in the mirror. And let's not forget about personal happiness. Express a desire for something outside the home, art, music, or a quiet afternoon alone, and you're met with concern. "Are you sure you're feeling all right?" they'll ask. Maybe you should talk to Dr. Hargrove. Happiness, in the 1950s, is a group project measured by the shine on your kitchen floor and the volume of your children's laughter. Ambition, daydreams, or simply needing a break are interpreted as warning signs, best handled with a brisk walk or, if necessary, a quiet pill from the medicine cabinet. The truth is, everyone is exhausted, everyone is pretending. Behind every smiling housewife is a pile of laundry just out of sight, a casserole that's slightly burnt, and a secret longing to sit down without worrying about what the neighbors might say. But the show must go on. You straighten your dress, swipe on a little more lipstick, and answer the doorbell with a smile. And so, the performance continues. Every day, you step onto your spotless stage, ready for the world's most demanding audience. Because in the 1950s, keeping up appearances isn't just an expectation, it's the only way to survive. The pill is still a few years away. So your options are unreliable at best and illegal at worst. Every trip to the doctor for female trouble is conducted with more secrecy than a spy mission. Welcome to the covert world of 1950s family planning, a time when building the perfect nuclear family was America's most prized dream. But the means of controlling its size were kept strictly under wraps. In this world, even whispering about birth control is enough to send the neighbors into a frenzy of speculation. The phrase planning your family isn't discussed at baby showers or bridge clubs. It's the unspoken subplot of every marriage. Let's start with the obvious. Contraceptive options are, for most women, limited to a dubious menu of natural methods. Good luck. Barrier devices stashed in the back of your husband's sock drawer, if you're bold, and folklore passed down from generation to generation, often involving a combination of moon cycles, crossed fingers, and sheer hope. Condoms exist, of course, but buying them is a covert operation. Your husband is sent on a special mission to the pharmacist, never the local grocer, and never, ever in broad daylight. He returns, triumphant, with a paper bag concealed in his coat pocket, as if he's smuggling top-secret documents instead of latex. For women, options are even fewer and fraught with social landmines. Diaphragms are available by prescription, but even mentioning the word at a doctor's appointment is a test of courage. You rehearse your lines in the mirror, then lower your voice to a conspiratorial whisper when the moment comes. Doctor, I'd like to discuss prevention. If the doctor approves, he presents the device with all the reverence of a sacred relic and a stern warning not to tell a soul. The instructions are vague, and the device itself comes in a discreet case you hide behind the linen closet's third shelf, camouflaged among the towels. And then there's the rhythm method, the official Catholic Church-sanctioned option, which, like most forms of 1950s science, involves a lot of charts, calculations, and crossed fingers. The rhythm method is promoted as both virtuous and highly effective, usually by people who have never used it. If you have questions, the answers are as clear as mud. Miscalculate by a day? Well, congratulations. You're expecting. Going beyond legal means is even riskier. Female trouble is the coded phrase for any problem that can't be discussed in polite society. If you find yourself in real distress, you may seek out shadowy figures who promise solutions, herbs, potions, whispered instructions, and hope your secret stays safe. A neighbor's cousin's friend knows someone who helps, but the risk is enormous and the outcome is never guaranteed. Even talking about it carries the weight of scandal and shame. In the medical community, the subject is either ignored or shrouded in euphemism. Spacing children is quietly suggested for mothers with fragile health, but no one will tell you how. Magazines print vague references to family planning, sandwiched between recipes and sewing patterns. The public face of motherhood is all smiles and endless gratitude, while the private reality is one of calculation, anxiety, and the occasional whispered confession after church. Every doctor's appointment for female trouble is treated like a scene from a spy novel. You check over your shoulder, invent a plausible cover story. It's just a checkup, and hope no one recognizes you at the clinic. Even pharmacists can be judgmental, raising an eyebrow as they hand over your special prescription. The result? Women become masters of secrecy and subtlety, learning to navigate the social minefield with grace and ingenuity. You lean on a trusted friend for advice, drop hints in hushed tones, and keep your fingers crossed that the future holds something easier, safer, and less dependent on lunar cycles. Because in the 1950s, Family planning is a secret act of hope, a quiet rebellion, an act of self-preservation, and a reminder that even the perfect housewife sometimes needs a little help from science and a lot of luck. Your neighbors know when you sneezed, how much you gained, and why you shouldn't walk alone at dusk. Keeping up with appearances is a full-time job, and if you fail, expect a casserole and a side of judgment. Welcome to the suburban theater of the 1950s, where every front window is a surveillance post. Every hedgerow is alive with whispers, and your life is public property from the moment you hang a baby on board sign, if only as a warning. The women in your neighborhood are masters of passive-aggressive support. They arrive at your door with a lime jello salad and news about the latest misstep made by the lady down the block. Did you hear she let her children play outside with mismatched socks? The jello is cold, the commentary is colder. Your weight gain, the color of your curtains, and the length of your lawn are all subjects for neighborhood review. If you dare to leave the house with a stain on your maternity smock, expect the local grapevine to grow a new branch. She must be having trouble at home. The postman, the milkman, and every child riding past on a bicycle are part of the information network. Someone always knows where you've been, what you bought, and whether you greeted Mrs. Wilson on her morning walk. The pressure isn't just about being perfect, it's about not being noticed for the wrong reasons. If you buy too many groceries, you're stocking up. Is she expecting twins? If you buy too few, you're falling behind. You skip one PTA meeting and spend weeks atoning with homemade fudge. Appearances are so important that, on some blocks, the only thing worse than having a sick child is failing to send a thank you note for the casserole delivered to your doorstep. And trust, someone always knows if you missed a step. Of course, the judgment comes with a veneer of concern. Your neighbor drops by just to check in, but somehow manages to comment on your baby's lack of booties, your slightly wilted tulips, and the fact that your husband didn't mow last Sunday. Advice is offered in the sweetest tone. You might want to use a little more starch on your collars, dear. It holds up better in the heat, and you're expected to receive it with gratitude. Every casserole comes with a side of notes. I used less salt this time. Just for you. I noticed your ankles looked a bit swollen at bridge. Then there are the rules. No walking alone after dusk. No letting the baby nap outside, unless the air is good and you use the approved pram. And certainly no hanging laundry on a Sunday. Violate these unwritten commandments and prepare for a slow wave of icy politeness. Your invitations dry up, and your phone calls go unanswered. The community watch doesn't punish. It exiles. Even celebrations are a test. Baby showers, birthday parties, and church suppers become opportunities to prove you can balance etiquette, appearance, and the perfect 7-layer salad. There's an unofficial contest for best hostess, and the winner is the one who manages to entertain without appearing to try. You can always tell who's losing by how many casseroles are left over at the end of the night. But the surveillance is not all bad. The same neighbors who track your every move are the first to organize a meal train when you're under the weather, or to keep an eye on your toddler when you need to step away. It's judgment, yes, but also community, the double-edged sword of 1950s suburban life. You may be suffocating under the scrutiny, but you're never truly alone. So you dust your curtains, keep your lawn trim, and accept the jello with a smile, because in this world you know the rules. Keep up, blend in, and never ever run out of thank you cards. That's life under the community watch. And just like the casserole, you take the good with the bad, one pastel slice at a time. Finally, the big day. Your husband hands out cigars, your mother-in-law rearranges the nursery, and everyone expects you to be radiant, grateful, and ready for another round. Welcome to motherhood in 1950s America. Hope you like Jell-O. As the first cries of your newborn echo through the hospital corridors, your husband beams with pride in the waiting room. He's presented with a box of cigars, an essential masculine accessory for every new father. The doctor hands him the news with a handshake and a grin. "It's a healthy one, Jim. Congratulations." Your husband proceeds to distribute celebratory cigars to every available male, from his own father to the hospital janitor. Smoking may be banned in the delivery room, but in the waiting area, it's practically encouraged. Clouds of tobacco waft down the hallway as proud new fathers congratulate one another, as if they were all responsible for this one miraculous feat. Inside, you're still blinking away the anesthesia and confusion, but expectations are already being formed like jello in a festive mold. The nurse snaps a Polaroid for the baby book. Then you're whisked away to a recovery room that smells faintly of antiseptic and carnations. A parade of family and friends appears, armed with gifts, casseroles, and unsolicited opinions. Your mother-in-law is first on the scene, ready to critique the arrangement of the crib, fluff the pillows, and improve your swaddling technique. "When I had your husband, we didn't have these fancy diapers," she says, all while deftly rearranging the changing table supplies you just organized to military precision. As you're getting acquainted with your newborn, whose main hobbies so far include sleeping and making mysterious noises, your own needs drift quietly to the background. There's little time for rest. Visitors arrive in waves, bearing pink or blue bouquets and advice about feeding, burping, and when to start planning for baby number 2. Champagne is poured, glasses are raised, and everyone toasts to your radiance and strength. Even if you feel more like you've just finished a triathlon in high heels, the congratulations come thick and fast, but so do the expectations. "You look wonderful, dear, already glowing," someone declares, as you try to conceal the dark circles under your eyes with a half-hearted swipe of powder. "When will you have another?" is the inevitable question. And you're not sure if they're joking or placing bets. You smile, accept another Jell-O salad, and wonder if it's too soon to lock the bedroom door forever. The homecoming is another spectacle. Your front porch is festooned with "Welcome Baby" banners, and the fridge is packed with casseroles, each more ambitious than the last: tuna, macaroni, and of course, the perennial favorite, lime gel, with mystery fruit. Neighbors wave from their driveways. Friends drop by for a quick peek at the baby and an even quicker look at your house, ready to report back on the state of your living room and your post-birth glow. Meanwhile, life goes on. The phone rings with congratulatory calls. Your husband heads back to work, and you're left with a newborn, a stack of thank you cards, and a house that suddenly feels a bit too small. At 3 a.m., while you're up for the 4th time feeding the baby, you stare at the moon outside the nursery window and wonder how on earth your mother did it and her mother before her. Through it all, there's a quiet pride. Exhausted but triumphant, you cradle your new baby and realize you've survived not just the birth, but the expectations, the scrutiny, and the relentless parade of Jell-O. The world is ready for you to do it all over again, soon, if the community has any say in the matter. But for now, you savor the moment. The soft weight of your baby, the echo of champagne toasts, and the knowledge that you've entered the wild, wonderful, and deeply absurd club of 1950s motherhood. Welcome home. And yes, there's more Jell-O in the fridge. It's 1953, and your biggest threat isn't morning sickness. It's the fact that your kitchen tiles are made of asbestos, your furniture glows in the dark, and your living room occasionally gets dusted with DDT to keep the flies away. Pregnant women are advised to relax, just not too close to the uranium glassware. Step inside your 1950s home, a modern marvel, the pride of suburbia, and, unbeknownst to you, a low-level science experiment. Your baby bump may be growing, but so is your exposure to what today's scientists would call mild environmental terror. You're living in a world where the line between convenience and catastrophe is measured in milligrams and micrograms, and nobody's the wiser. Take the kitchen, for example. The latest in home improvement fashion is asbestos tile. Fireproof, easy to clean, and stylish in a don't breathe too hard sort of way. You mop these tiles daily, sending tiny, invisible fibers wafting into the air as your toddler scoots around in footy pajamas. The family is impressed with your sparkling floors. No one mentions the long-term lung risk. For you, it's just another surface to keep spotless so Mrs. Wilson can't gossip about your standards. Next up is the furniture. That sleek, glowing clock on your mantel, painted with radium, so you can see it glow while you time the roast or check how long you've been listening to your mother-in-law. It's the future, darling. Never mind that no one wears gloves or asks why their fingertips tingle. The same goes for your uranium-tinted glassware, prized for its cheerful color and atomic-era chic. Your husband boasts about it to the neighbors. You can spot it under black light, he says. Yes, because it's mildly radioactive. Step into the living room and you'll find the DDT can on a shelf next to the cookbooks. Once a week, you dust the entire house with this miracle powder, advertised as safe for the whole family. The local pest control man swings by to fog the hedges and, on special occasions, offers to dust your mattresses just in case. Pregnant women are advised to stay inside or outside or wherever the fumes aren't thickest. No one is really sure, but it's probably fine. Meanwhile, the paint on the nursery walls is packed with lead, celebrated for its durability and the ease with which it can be wiped clean. Your child's favorite teething ring, painted with the same stuff. The crib bars are easy to chew, and you're complimented for having such sturdy furniture. If your baby starts gnawing, you're told it'll build strong teeth. The bathroom isn't much better. The tiles and insulation are asbestos, and the medicine cabinet holds bottles of patent medicine with mysterious ingredients, some of which glow slightly in the dark. You take comfort in the fact that the soap contains germ-killing phenol, though no one's quite sure what that does. You scrub the tub while humming along with the radio, blissfully unaware that half your cleaning products would be classified as hazardous waste by the EPA today. If all of this is making you nervous, don't worry, just not too much. Anxiety is frowned upon and usually handled with a dose of Mother's Little Helper. If the news gets too grim, something about atomic testing or another warning to duck and cover, the answer is simple. Pour a glass of milk, serve some gel, and turn up the TV. The atomic age is nothing if not optimistic, and you're expected to float through it with the poise of a woman who's never read a warning label. So you mop the asbestos, dust the DDT, and polish the uranium glass, all while awaiting your new arrival. The true miracle is that anyone made it out of this era at all, but somehow you do. Raising your child in a sparkling home filled with hope, hospitality, and the mild buzz of atomic anxiety. And when your grandkids ask how anyone survived the 1950s, you'll smile, straighten your vintage apron and say, "We just didn't know any better, honey. But the house sure was clean." You sign up for a modern childbirth class, where you're taught to pant, smile, and never scream. Because screaming is unladylike. The nurse demonstrates breathing techniques, and everyone pretends that a deep inhale will make you forget you're about to give birth in a building full of strangers with zero painkillers. Let's take a deep, calming breath and step into the world of the 1950s prenatal class, where science and decorum intersect in a whirlwind of controlled exhaling and polite denial. Childbirth education is the latest trend, and you sign up not for knowledge, but for the hope that it'll give you a sense of control before plunging into the great unknown, also known as labor. Classes are held in a spare hospital meeting room or the back of the local community center. The air is thick with nervous energy and the faint scent of chalk. You're greeted by a nurse who looks like she could run an army barracks, her white cap perched with military precision. She welcomes you with a reassuring smile and hands out pamphlets filled with pastel illustrations. Perfectly coiffed women lying calmly in spotless hospital beds, newborns wrapped like burritos, and smiling doctors in crisp lab coats. The class opens with a round of introductions. I'm Barbara. Due in September. Mary. October. There's a collective hush as everyone tries not to reveal how anxious they are about what's coming. The nurse launches into her presentation, using phrases like the miracle of birth and a natural process, while studiously avoiding the words pain, tearing, or hysteria. You learn the basics: when to call the hospital, what to pack in your overnight bag, hint, more lipstick, less hope, and how to manage discomfort through the power of positive thinking and breath control. The star of the show is breathing. Slow inhale, steady exhale. Repeat until you're either in labor or hyperventilating. The nurse demonstrates, and the class follows along, all of you panting in unison, sounding like a choir of slightly worried poodles. Then come the practical demonstrations. The nurse lies on a cot and shows how to breathe through a contraction. She smiles serenely, never once breaking into a sweat or grimace. Remember, ladies, a calm mother makes for a calm baby. You try to emulate her, clutching your sides and focusing on your breath, while a tiny part of you wonders how many times she's actually given birth herself. Spoiler, probably never. Screaming, moaning, or even groaning is strongly discouraged, unbecoming, and disturbing to the hospital staff. The only acceptable sounds are sighs of mild discomfort and the occasional whimper, quickly suppressed. If you look especially tense, you're reassured with phrases like, just relax, and everything will be fine, which is about as helpful as a recipe for invisible soup. Husbands are welcome, but most opt out, citing work obligations. The few who attend sit in the back, arms folded, hoping no one asks them to practice the breathing exercises. The nurse gives them a handout on supporting your wife, which is mostly about reminding her to breathe and, if necessary, fetching ice chips. Men, stay calm, she advises. Your nerves will influence hers. Most husbands nod solemnly, secretly praying they'll be far away when the real action starts. At the end of class, you're sent home with a list of reminders. Practice breathing daily, pack your hospital bag, and above all, remember to think positively. You try to convince yourself that deep breathing and good posture are enough to face what's coming, a marathon of pain, confusion, and strangers telling you to smile. But as the class files out, you catch the nurse's eye. For a split second, her polished mask slips, and you see something like sympathy, or is it mischief, in her expression. You'll do fine, dear, she says, patting your arm. And you almost believe her, so you head home, inhaling and exhaling, preparing for the big day. Because in the 1950s, childbirth classes are less about learning to survive labor and more about mastering the art of pretending you're not terrified. Once the baby arrives, you're whisked away to a hospital room with other new mothers, separated from your newborn so you can rest. The nurse brings you lime jello. Visitors peek through the glass, and the only thing you control is how tightly you hold on to your new plastic ID bracelet. Welcome to the grand tradition of the 1950s postnatal hospital stay, a ritual part vacation, part detention, and part very public exhibition. You're assigned a bed in a shared ward with 3 or 4 other women, all fresh from the same ordeal, all blinking under the fluorescent lights like groggy recruits on their first day of boot camp. Privacy? Not even a rumor. If you want to cry, you do it quietly, under your thin cotton blanket, hoping no one notices. Your baby, meanwhile, is whisked away to the nursery, visible only through a pane of glass that might as well be the Berlin Wall. It's for your rest, the nurse insists. wheeling your bassinet out the door and leaving you with an empty spot where your arms feel like they're missing something vital. You're handed your baby for brief, supervised visits, feeding time, a quick cuddle, and then back to the glass-walled holding pen. The nurses, efficient and firm, keep a strict schedule. Your only souvenir from this bonding experience is the tiny plastic ID bracelet digging into your wrist, a symbol of the hospital's promise not to accidentally send you home with the wrong child. Your meals arrive with clockwork regularity: toast, chicken a la king, and that ever-present lime gel, quivering on a metal tray. If you're lucky, there's a pat of margarine. If you're not, your food arrives cold after the nurse's third trip to remind you that rest is best for recovery. It's hard to argue, but it's harder to choke down another bowl of creamed corn. You eat anyway, fuel for the parade of visitors. Because visitors are coming. Aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors, and every member of your husband's bowling league. They press their noses to the glass nursery window, pointing out which baby looks like whom and offering commentary on your ability to bounce back. Your husband stands in the hallway, proud and beaming, fielding congratulations and passing out cigars to the fathers, as if he personally delivered the baby while balancing a checkbook. Inside the ward, camaraderie blooms among new mothers, equal parts empathy and competition. Whose baby has the loudest cry? Who has the most flowers, the best robe, the least frazzled hair? You swap stories, share advice, and occasionally conspire to sneak a second look at your babies in the nursery when the nurse isn't watching. Sleep is sporadic. The lights are always on, and someone's always snoring or whispering about the shocking behavior of another patient. She asked for more pain relief. Resentment simmers quietly beneath the surface. You want to rest, but you also want your baby. You want to heal, but the clock is always ticking. You're allowed a few days of recovery, longer than the modern average, but still a race to reclaim your pre-baby composure. You take stock of your body, stitched, sore, and inexplicably expected to feel grateful. The nurses offer encouragement and the occasional pep talk. You'll be home soon, dear. Just make sure you're ready for visitors. Discharge day arrives at last, a flurry of paperwork, final checkups, and instructions for baby care that seem impossibly vague. Babies know what they need. Just trust your instincts. You're handed your newborn, a mountain of donated formula and more flowers than your windowsill can handle. With the hospital bracelet still biting your wrist, you step into the world a new woman, part exhausted, part proud, and part very ready to finally rest, even if it's just in your own bed. And as you leave, you look back through the glass, one last glance at the place where recovery and resentment met, where your journey into motherhood became as public as it was personal. Good luck, and welcome home. So tonight, as you lay back in your real bed, with memory foam, clean sheets, and a total absence of lead paint or soothing cigarette smoke, let's take a gentle moment to appreciate just how far we've come. You've survived a virtual trip through the pastel-tinted minefield that was pregnancy in 1950s America. 9 months of unsolicited advice, gelatin salads, judgmental neighbors, and enough medical misinformation to fill a textbook, one that, thankfully, no longer gets used. It wasn't easy back then. It wasn't even particularly safe. Every day was a balancing act between looking perfect, acting cheerful, and pretending that being given a sedative during labor was just another modern convenience. You did it all while worrying about nursery colors, avoiding your mother-in-law's casserole, and wondering if the next doctor's appointment would involve actual advice or just a gentle pat on the hand. And through it all, women pushed forward, tough, resilient, and armed with nothing but a sense of humor and, apparently, a lot of cod liver oil. So, as you drift off to sleep tonight, remember, history may be brutal, absurd, and sometimes genuinely ridiculous, but it's also proof of how endlessly adaptable people can be. Each generation survived Not because things were easy, but because people are stubborn, hopeful, and, let's face it, often a little bit hilarious. Take a moment to thank your lucky stars for modern comforts, compassionate medicine, and the right to say no to Jell-O salads at your next baby shower. Because if you can make it through this story with your sense of humor intact, you're already tougher than a 1950s maternity girdle. Good night. And may your dreams be peaceful, your pillows be asbestos-free, and your children never demand a dinner that involves both pineapple and mayonnaise. Sleep well.